class, because we had quite a few students gone today, decided to make this video so while you're at home, you can make up today's lesson quick and then move on with the week so you don't have to rock getting caught up when you get back. So this is for Monday, January 10th. So even if you don't have your math binder at home, get out a sheet of paper and just keep a running list of everything we do. So then you can just turn that in when you get back and make things a whole lot smooth. So this is Monday, day 6. Here's our MDI. 5x minus 15 equals 35. So go ahead. First thing you do is you write this down. And then remember, our first step after writing it down is to draw a line through the equal sign. Now remember, when we solve equations, our goal is to get the x by itself. And if you look in this case, the x is attached to the 5. So I want to leave that for the end to get it by itself. So if I go ahead, if I cover up that 5x, okay, if I cover this up right here, you'll notice I'm left with negative 15. That is what I want to get rid of first. I want to leave the 5x alone and get rid of the minus 15 first. Then if you remember, we talked about doing the inverse. So the inverse of subtracting 15 is adding 15. So to get rid of the 15, I need to add it to this side. And then the whole reason we draw a line down the equal sign is because we need to do it to the other side as well. That's called balancing the equation. So if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. Now, because this is a two-step equation, I like to draw a line under it to kind of show my next step. So we know 35 plus 15 is 50. My equal sign stays on the line. And negative 15 plus 15 gives me 0. So that cancels out. So I actually don't write anything in there. And the 5x comes straight down. Now I have 5x equals 50. Now, once again, the goal is to get the x by itself. So in this case, I have to get rid of 5. Well, we know 5x means multiply by 5. So to get rid of it, I need to do the inverse, which is divide. Because remember, inverse is kind of like opposite. So the opposite of timesing by 5 is dividing by 5. So if I divide this by 5, I divide this by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I'm left with x, or you could write 1x, equals 50 divided by 5, which is 10. So I get x equals 10. Now remember, you can always check your answers too. We can do substitution, which we learned earlier in the year. If x equals 10, I can say, well, 5 times 10 is 50, minus 15 is 35. And that is the correct answer. So make sure you get all that written down. Pause the video if you need to. I'm going to erase it so I can move on to the next one. All right, go ahead. Pause the video, write down number 2, and draw your line through it. All right, so just like number 1, this is called a two-step equation. I want to get the 3x by itself first and then get the x by itself. So if I leave 3x alone, I have negative 9 equals 21, or minus 9 equals 21. Well, I need to do the inverse of minus 9, and the inverse of subtracting is adding. So I'm going to add 9. And remember, the whole reason we draw that line is because if I add 9 to this side, I have got to do it to the other side. So what do I have here? 21 plus 9. Well, we know that is 30. My equal sign stays on the line. Negative 9 plus 9 is going to be 0. And I'm left with 3x. So that is step 1. Now 3x equals 30. Remember, 3 times x means multiplication. So I always have to do the inverse. So to get x by itself, the inverse of multiplying is division. So instead of 3 times x, I need 3 divided by 3. And if I do it to one side, I do it to the other. And we know 3 divided by 3 is 1, or x equals 30 divided by 3, which is 10. All right, again, if you do not have your math binder at home, for the bell ringer, you can just label it Monday bell ringer, however you want to do it. But this is the bell ringer we have this week. And it's super important you write this down because I'm going to show a little trick. So on the note of your paper, okay, also remember you can pause it at any time, but draw this triangle on the side. And in this triangle, we want to draw minus, minus, plus, or negative, negative, positive. And that's going to help us determine how to solve these problems. So let's look at number 1 on Monday. I have -5 or -7 and +5. Well, they're different signs, so I have a negative and a positive. And you'll see I'm left with a negative sign. So that means my answer is going to be negative. And then we know 7 times 5 is 35. And it's really that simple. Okay, you just use the triangle to see what sign you need. So let's look at day 2, or number 2. I have -25, so I cover it up, and -5. So 2 negatives, I'm left with a positive. So my answer is going to be positive. Remember, you don't need to write down the positive sign. And 25 divided by 5 is 5. All right, what about number 3? 2 positives. Well, heck, I don't have 2 positives on my triangle, but we know since 4th or 5th grade, if we multiply 2 positive numbers, our answer is going to be positive. So this one is simply 8 times 4, which is 32. All right, number 4, I have -9 and -3. So I cover up both negatives, and I'm left with a positive. And then we know 9 times 3 is 27. All right, and number 5. Again, we are going to do the quiz this Friday without a calculator. You can use a multiplication chart. But remember, for this one, we want to solve this using arrows or a scale factor. So I look at 9 and 81. So you have to ask yourself, how does 9 get to 81? Or I could do 81 divided by 9. It's the same thought process. But I know 9 times 9 is 81. So if I do it to the bottom, I also have to take the top times 9. And 5 times 9 is 45. All right. Again, pause the video if you need to get that down. I'm just going to keep running. Now I'm going to jump straight to lesson 2. So don't play this part of the video until you're ready to write down the stuff for lesson 2. If you do not have your math binder at home, simply just use a sheet of paper. We're going to make a table. You can copy the table down. You can copy the notes down. It's not a big deal. Okay. Most importantly is just making sure you're staying on top of things while you're at home. So the goal of today's lesson is still, again, using a number line, but we're going to use the number line today to add and subtract numbers. So how to use a number line. Sorry, I'm going to switch screens just really quick. It'll be a little bit easier here. So for my number line, I always look at the bottom arrow. So this one right here is the bottom arrow. And the bottom arrow is always going to point to the starting part or the starting number. So my bottom arrow for here points to 3. So that means I am going to start with 3. Now, all these problems are going to be addition problems. So I'm going to put 3 plus. And then the top arrow always points to our answer. So if I look at this top arrow, it's pointing to 7. So I know my answer is going to be 7. So I have to ask myself, 3 plus what is 7? So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I know 3 plus 4 is 7, and that is correct. But if I didn't know that, how could I answer that using the number line? Well, my first arrow goes to 3 because that's where I start. Okay, my second arrow, let's count how many times it goes over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it starts at 3, it goes over 4, and it ends up at 7. So that is how you can use the arrows to solve the problems. So let's look at B. My first arrow, my bottom one, once again, points to 3. So I start at 3. I know these are going to be addition problems. My top arrow points all the way to -6. All right, so 3 plus what gives me -6? Okay, well, right away, this one isn't as easy as 3 plus 4 equals 7. So we have to look at our top arrow. Now, how many times did I move it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I moved it 9 times. But what do you notice about this top one? If you look, compared to the last problem, our top one is going to the left. And as we know about number lines, if we go to the left, it is going to be negative. So it's not 3 plus 9, it's going to be 3 plus -9. And that will give me -6. All right, let's look at C. My arrow points to my starting pot, the bottom arrow. So I start with 3. I know it's going to be addition. My top arrow points to 0, so I know it's going to equal 0. So 3 plus what gives me 0? Well, let's see. We start here. We moved 1, 2, 3 times. And because I moved 3 to the left means I'm going towards the negative side, so it's going to be -3. And D, I start at 0, it points to -4, so my starting point is -4 because that's where it points to. We know it's addition. My top arrow points to -9. So -4 plus what is -9? Well, let's check our top arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And because I'm going to the left again, it is -5. So -4 plus -5 equals -9. Right. If the temperature starts at 40 and increases 10 degrees, what will it be? Well, if my temperature starts at 40, okay, I'm starting with 40. Our last unit was all about increasing and decreasing. So we should know if it says increase, that means addition. An increase is 10 degrees. Well, 40 plus 10, we know is 50. Now let's see how we can do that with the number line. So my bottom arrow points to 40, so that's where I start. My top arrow points to 50, so that's where my answer comes. Okay, and then let's see how many times we moved over. We moved 1 tick here, and then another tick, but if we notice here, each of these ticks is 5 and 5. So I moved a total of 10. So 40 plus 10 equals 50. So at this point, go ahead and pause the video. And you're actually going to make this table in your notes. Okay, when you get back, you can actually fill out the table in your math binder. But while you're at home working, just take the time to pause this video, make this table, and then you can fill it out. I'm just going to keep talking, but again, pause it if you need to make it. So we just did A together. 40, 10 degrees warmer means plus 10 equals 50. And then we made the number line. So let's look at B. We're starting at 40, but we're going to be 5 degrees colder. So if the temperature is going to be colder, what do you think we're going to do? Are we going to add a positive number or a negative number? Remember, if temperature gets colder, it's going to be a negative number. So to get 5 degrees colder, I'm going to add -5. And then let's go ahead, let's put this on the number line. So I know I'm going to start with 40, right? So the arrow is going to go from 0. It's going to point to 40 for my starting point. And then 5 degrees colder. So I'm going to go -5. I'm going to go to the left 5. So I'm at 40. I go to the left 5. Notice here, 1 tick is 5. Okay, so I'm not going to count 5 ticks. I'm just going 1 tick, which is 5. And my arrow points to 35. So if I start at 40 and I go 5 degrees colder, my temperature is positive 35. Great. Letter C. So once again, I'm starting at 40. And I can even come down right away. Draw my arrow to 40. Now this says 30 degrees colder. Well, we just said if we get colder, I'm going to add a negative, right? I'm going to go to the left of the number line, or I'm going to go down on a thermometer if I get colder. So 40 plus negative 30, because I'm getting colder, well, what's that going to be? So I'm at 40, and I know if I go to the left, every tick is 5, and I want to make sure I go over 30 times. So watch how I do this. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And my top arrow points to 10. So if I'm at 40, I go negative 30 degrees colder, I am at positive 10 degrees. Letter D. Once again, I'm starting at 40. I know it's going to be addition. I'm going to go 40 degrees colder. Well, if I'm going colder in temperature, I'm going to go down, which means I'm going to get closer to 0, which means towards the negatives. So I'm going to add negative 40. So if I'm at 0, I go to 40. Now I'm going to add negative 40. Well, let's count. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And if I add negative 40, I finish at 0. I'm going to erase these number lines really quick so we have space to do the last one. So once again, for E, I'm starting at 40. Now it says 50 degrees colder. Gosh, so I'm going to go down 50 degrees. Well, I know I'm adding, but if I'm going to go down 50 degrees, that has to be negative 50. So I start at 0. My first arrow points to our starting number, which is 40. And now I'm going to go down 50 degrees, which means I'm going to go to the left towards the negative numbers. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. And my arrow points at negative 10. So that is how you use the number lines to solve these problems. Now, I know before we've worked on how to solve those without number lines, and that is fine. But this unit is just showing us how to do it. So again, if you need to pause it, I know I went fast, but pause it if you need to get that written down. I'm going to jump ahead to the next table. So again, pause it. Make sure you get this table copied down, and I'm going to get started. So for this one, I'm starting with negative 20. And A says 30 degrees warmer. Well, if it gets warmer, I know I'm going to add to the temperature, because the warmer it is, the higher the temperature is. So if I'm getting 30 degrees warmer, I'm going to add 30. So again, my first arrow, in this case, I'm starting at negative 20. So my first arrow needs to point to negative 20. And then I'm going to add 30. And once again, this number line is going by fives. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And my final arrow points to 10. So negative 20 plus 30 is 10. All right, letter B. So I'm starting at negative 20. I'm getting 35 degrees warmer, so my temperature is increasing if it's getting warm outside. So I'm going to add 35. So 0, I'm going to negative 20. Now I'm adding 35. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And my second arrow points to 15. All right, letter C. I am once again starting at negative 20. So it says right here on the table, start, negative 20. And now I'm 15 degrees warmer. So, again, if I'm getting warmer, my temperature is going up. So I'm adding 15. So I'm at 0. My first arrow goes to negative 20. Now I'm going to add 15. 5, 10, 15. My second arrow points to negative 5. And our final one. I start at negative 20. I am 15 degrees colder this time. Well, if I'm getting colder, the temperature is going down. And remember, if temperature goes down, I need to use negative numbers. So I'm going to add a negative 15 because I'm getting 15 degrees colder. So again, my first arrow goes to the starting point, which is negative 20. And now I'm going 15 degrees colder. So starting here, I need to go to the left 15 because I'm adding a negative number. So 5, 10, 15. And my second arrow points to negative 35. So make sure you get that written down. And again, pause the video. I'm going to jump ahead right away. I'm going to jump up here. See if that screen works on the video. All right, so it doesn't have the directions on the screen, but what I do know is that Houston is 8 degrees. So in Orlando, it is 10 degrees warmer than Houston. Well, I know Houston is 8 degrees. So what is 10 degrees warmer than 8? Well, if it's warmer, we said the temperature is going up, and that's increasing. We know increasing means math. So we're starting with Houston, which is 8 degrees. Orlando is 10 degrees warmer. So 8 plus 10 is 18. And that is it. So this would be number 1 if you're going to number it. So number 1, 8 plus 10 equals 18. All right, and Salt Lake City is 8 degrees colder than Houston. Well, I know Houston is 8 degrees. And what does colder mean? Yep, remember, colder means the temperature is going to get lower. It's going to decrease, so we subtract. Well, 8 degrees minus 8 degrees is 0. So this would be number 2. All right, in Minneapolis, it is 20 degrees colder than it is in Houston. So this is 3. Well, again, we know Houston is 8. And 20 degrees colder means temperature is going to go down 20 degrees or decrease. Well, you know, decrease means subtract. So 8 minus 20. Or I apologize. 8. These are all additional ones. So 8 plus negative 20. And that is, hopefully you got this one right. Okay, 8 plus negative 20 is negative 12. All right, in Fairbanks, it is 10 degrees colder than it is in Minneapolis. What is the temperature in Fairbanks? Well, we know that Minneapolis is negative 12. We just did that one. So again, this is question 4. We know Minneapolis is negative 12. And so I don't screw it up this time. I'm going to put the addition sign right away. In Fairbanks, it is 10 degrees colder. So if it's colder, that means the temperature is going down. So the bigger the negative number, the colder it is. So if I'm going to be 10 degrees colder, I'm going to add a negative 10. And negative 12 plus negative 10 is negative 22. All right, that is all we did in class today. So that is for Monday. And I'll probably make these each day this week just to make sure everyone can stay on track while they're at home.